specific in a second, but first I just wanted to gauge how, like, generally how you think your coaching conversation went.
I think that we had like an authentic conversation because she was able to kind of understand where I was coming from with my feedback. So I don't think that there was like much pushback from her, because it's like if there was like a mindset issue, for example, that she didn't see that I saw, then that could be like a more like pushback conversation. But I think that it was relatively straightforward.
Cool.
So it's like with her specifically, there's not anything like glaringly wrong. They're like kind of like easy fixes that she can implement like tomorrow.
I completely agree. When I'm thinking about like, so Tanesha, I talked a lot this morning about like just like making sure and reorienting towards vision. And I think about our school vision of like helping people find their greatness. I think about like that breaking down into making sure that our teachers have like the knowledge, the skills, and the mindset of like, you know, what they need to be excellent teachers, that they are internalizing it so that they're getting it in an institute and carrying it into the region. To what degree, and when I think about mindset, I'm thinking about like two things specifically. One, like the mindset around like everything we've talked about in the past week around like having a vision and the importance of a vision. I think about that, like, so being vision oriented, and then two, just like empowering mindsets that we talk about generally, like related to teaching. So my next question for you is, to what degree do you think that Brittany is oriented toward vision, like as evidenced in her teaching today? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
It would have been smart for me to have her vision out so that we could have referenced it. Because that wasn't mentioned at all in our conversation.
Cool. I think that's a really easy next step that'll help like make sure that isn't even too much like on your end, but just like having her, and especially, you know, I think we have a big opportunity as we're on Thursday leading the session. By we, I mean CMA. It's like leading the session on like revisiting your vision, but like that's a big opportunity that we have coming up to really reinforce that, and then starting every coaching conversation with like, let's talk about your progress toward this vision. Thinking about knowledge and skills, to what degree do you feel like Brittany is aligned with your analysis of her knowledge and skills? Does that make sense? So now
Yes.
I'm thinking about and going to specifically, sorry Tanesha, you had it out, like the analyze, align, and act. And I'm skipping over align. Sorry, maybe I should rewind and frame this question a little bit better, because I feel like your analysis of her classroom was like totally spot on, both in our conversation and then what I just saw in your conversation with her. And it seemed like you all were aligned. Like I totally agree with what you said. She's like, it was an authentic conversation. She was like agreed with your feedback. So do you feel like, do you agree? Do you think that your alignment between you and Brittany was like totally on, or there were any like parts that you were not aligned on?
I think there's a little bit of confusion about what I meant when I said like the explicit instruction in the I do, we do, and the you do, and how I wanted her to like change that. I think there was a little bit of confusion about terminology. That's why I wanted to ask her, like, what do you mean when you say this? So that I can clear up like any misconceptions. Because I want them, because I know that there is kind of a learning curve when it comes to like language that we're using to talk about a lot of these concepts. So just making sure that my core members understand what I say what I mean when I say like explicit instruction or like guided reading. So like to understand like what their thought process is behind it and to clear up any misconceptions. So I think that was an opportunity that there was a little bit of like misalignment, but we were able to get back on the same page.
Cool. So then thinking about that, I think you did a really good job in this conversation, like making sure that you are aligned. So what, like thinking about your next coaching conversations, what are your thoughts and what are your plans for like making sure that it happens at that level, and that when conversations get a little bit more difficult, because I think Brittany is like you said, like pretty agreeable to feedback and like really receptive to it, for making sure that you're aligning with core members.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So what is your plan to make sure that what ways are you thinking about just making sure that you're really aligned in coaching your core members?
I think that kind of goes back to our like commander's intent of like building those relationships with core members, because like my coaching conversations aren't the only time that I get to talk to my core members about their instruction. It's like I try to leave them a little note like after I observe them, or like catch them during some downtime to kind of talk with them about what I saw. And like, you know, they text me with questions about their lesson plans often. Mm-hmm. So I think that as long as we keep those like those lines of communications open, when we get to a coaching conversation, it's not like what I'm saying is like really catching them off guard. And even if it is something that they like, a piece of feedback that's difficult for them to like kind of accept and internalize, like just working on like building that like authentic relationship so that we can have those difficult conversations.
Can I interject?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's kind of like what I'm thinking based on like Brittany and your feedback. I am thinking about like, I want to go back to like the analyze phase, because I do feel like there was a lot of pieces in your analyze phase that were really strong, but I think, and I know that like the key piece that is going to lead towards like Brittany getting towards the vision that she aspires toward is like you coming to the conversation knowing and be able to define the student level change and the teacher level change. Because what I am unclear of based on like the end of the conversation is if like, can you like give a concrete example of like, yes, this is happening, or no, it's not happening? Like, what is the student level change? Like, what are the things we will see from students? Because I think a lot of those next steps that you aligned were at the teacher level. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that we don't know like how that influenced. Like, we have to start with the student level change and keep like our aspirations for what we would want to be true at a very high level. And so I feel like, and you acknowledge that you gave a lot of like technical smaller pieces, but if you think about, and even for me, I think she was in 6th grade, right? Yes. When I think about what I was doing in 6th grade, and that was like legitimately in 1995 versus like what I saw today in 2014, and like even if I didn't even have the CCI out, I don't necessarily know that like that is the aspiration for like what we want to be true, given like what we know about Common Core right now and the core components of instruction and like her vision. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of your next steps were grounded in a level of small quick fixes, but nothing that's going to push that classroom towards the next level, towards being able to like compete. What do you think about that?
That is true. And that's I guess another piece that was missing like during this vision conversation, was to have like the core components of instruction so we can have an idea of the vision that we're pushing our kids toward in these classrooms for the summer.
And you know what I'm actually thinking that we can do? This, if we focus on just like this analysis piece, and by we, I'm saying like Brittany and Danielle and like me on occasion, which is like taking all of these wonderful notes and all of these touch points that you have with your core members and really getting clear before the coaching conversation of like the student level change and the teacher level change, grounded in like her vision and what she brings as a teacher. That's going to allow this conversation to like take it to the next level. You know what I mean? That's going to allow her students to go to the next level, so that when you get here, you're building that like shared urgency and that like clarity around next steps, grounded in the aspiration that she and her collabs have already identified for their core members. So I think that's going to take like some collaboration and some like coaching, but I definitely feel like you are on the right track.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.